Well, I didn't tell Debbie much about the club because I was afraid she'd get scared if she knew what was really happening, but we're glad to have her. She and I go to Day Spring Presbyterian Church, and our pastor's here today, Pastor Dean, who's also a bulldog, Mississippi State variety. We still love him. Dogs have to stick together. Okay, Debbie's got a lot to say, and she knows that y'all start walking out at 1 o'clock, so I told her not to take it personally. But Debbie was born in Haiti, and at times I guess it was hot as Hades. She attended a school in the Bahamas, and let's see, one of the students was the Prime Minister's son of the Bahamas. She's a daughter of missionaries, and somehow she ended up in Atlanta, Georgia, at the Georgia Baptist Nursing School, which is now called what? Atlanta Medical Center, and it's connected to Mercer. Okay. While in Atlanta, she met Steve Harbin at First Baptist Church. Steve was a student there at the North Avenue Trade School, also known as Georgia Tech. After they got married, they started a school in the Bahamas where they served as missionaries for a while. And through God's providence, they ended up in Poseidon. That's quite a story. She won't share that today probably, but interesting. Debbie is a nurse at heart, and she would still do it if she had an opportunity. But raising 6 children has kept her and Steve very busy. They only had 6. Josh, Juliana, they're out of the nest now. Justina, their daughter, just got a job as a nurse extern at the medical center. Joel, Jordan, and Jacob are still at home. Debbie has the most important job in the world, and that's being a homemaker, a wife, a mom, and she's also a school teacher. They homeschool their children. They have is Jacob, and he is a special needs child. He has autism. And Debbie is a member of the council here in Middle Georgia, and she's going to tell you about her work on the council and give us some ideas of things that we might be able to do and share some important information with us.
Okay, thank you. Well, actually, Rod didn't tell you that he really invited my husband, and my husband had a business engagement, so he sent me instead. I'm sorry, y'all had to substitute.
We'd rather have you. Yeah, you're
And part of the reason that he invited my husband is because he started a foundation for, it's called Anchor of Hope Foundation, and our motto is hope for the future and joy in the journey, because you need hope, but you also need joy. And when we started on this, we did not plan this journey, let me just tell you. And I can tell you, our whole life has been one of those things where, you know, God just keeps taking us different places, and we're going, wow, what are you doing now? And am I sure that I really want this to happen to me? Because when we were, you know, got married and living in East Point, had our home, and everything was nice and settled, and somehow we ended up in the Bahamas, in this little bitty island, teaching school. Neither one of us have teaching degrees, but we have our, you know, our bachelor's degrees, and we think, okay, well, we can do this. And he becomes administrator, and, you know, things are happening. And then God brings us back to the Forsyth of all places, and he gets a job in Macon, and it's a phenomenal story to just how God brought us here. It's really amazing. But one thing my husband did to me, he put this little guilt trip on me, because as I was getting started, my oldest child was nearing kindergarten, and I was, you know, good friends with some of the physicians in town, and, you know, looking at schools, and having been, you know, in a teaching position in the Bahamas where we started a Christian school, we started really evaluating what was important for our kids, and we said that, oh, what, you know, we really want to find a school that, you know, we can teach our children the things we want to teach them, but there wasn't anything available. So that was one of the reasons my husband said, would you be willing to give, you know, 1 year of your life to teach the kids that you gave 3 years, you know, kids that you didn't know? I said, oh, guilt, I'll do it. Even though I had a newborn and a strong-willed 2-year-old and a 5-year-old who was really reluctant about going to school, period. But I did it, and as it turned out, after my 3-year stint, I said, I'm done. I'm going to put those kids in school. We're going to put them in a private school in Macon, and after about a year of running back and forth and having to pick up a kindergartner at 12:30 and one at 2:30 and running the wheels off my minivan, my third grader at that point said, "Mom, can we come home again?" And I said, "Sure, we'll do it. Nothing could be harder than staying on the road." So that's hence why I homeschooled. I wanted you all to understand a little bit of my background. And things were going pretty good until we had, kids after kids after kids. And I thought, we're not just pro-life, but we're prolific here. What is going on? I finally figured out what's happening. And anyway, no story. But what happened that really changed our life was we had Jacob. And, okay, to get, serious about, wow, how did you know Jacob was different? What is different about him? He was a typical, everything was going great. In fact, at a year old, Olin Mills put his picture up big. He was so cute, he smiled. And then something, I remember distinctly because my oldest child was going on his first mission trip to Asia, and he said to me, when he starts, he's starting to put words together. He's saying, light on, bye-bye, those kind of things. When I get back from my mission trip, he'll be just talking up a storm because that's what happens with language, right? Because this child was very social. He had none of the other signs and that you would think something else was going on. But I remember when my son came back from his mission trip in the end of the summer, all of a sudden I started thinking, wait a minute, he's not talking as much. Maybe I just didn't think about it. So his birthday was late in October. Took him to the doctor for a 2-year checkup, and nagging thought just said, something's not right, something's not right. And my doctor, my pediatrician, said, oh, no, he's the youngest of 6. He's a boy. Boys don't talk. You're all talking for him. You're all there and you're doing things for him, so it's your fault. So I thought, okay, I let that pass through the holidays. And January came, I decided, I got a 2-year-old that I have never seen before. This is the most tantruming 2-year-old. All the things I've done in the past do not work with this child. I don't know. I spank him and he doesn't get it. What is going on? So I decided in January that what I would do was I was going to make him talk. And I was going to make it happen. He could say juice, and he was going to get nothing to drink until he said, I want juice. At least if he said juice, I would give it to him. But I decided we were going to work on it, and I had a little read. I said, I'm going to switch you, but you're going to say juice, because I've heard you say it before. I know you can say it. And I decided nothing else was going to happen that day, but we were going to say juice. Well, we went round and round. This little boy was very thirsty, and he wanted juice, and he would not say it. And he was in a lather, and I was in a lather, and I was saying, come on. And I modeled it for him. I said, look, do this and say juice, and I'll give it to you. And I did it over, and I did it over. 45 minutes, we're both in a sweat. And I'm on the floor down there with him, and he crawls in my lap, and he looks me in the eye, and he says, bye-bye. And I went, bye-bye? You just don't get it. And I got on the phone, and I called my pediatrician. I said, I want a speech evaluation like now. And I get one. Well, at that time, we didn't have a diagnosis, so we didn't have insurance to pay for it. So I went down, got my speech evaluation. It was $240 an hour, and that was fine and good for, a couple hours. And I'm thinking, I kept asking her, like, what do you think is going on? She says, well, he's language delayed. I said, well, that's obvious. He's language delayed. I know that. Well, what do you think? Because I just didn't know about autism. I didn't understand what was going on. She said, well, I'm not sure. Let me do some more tests. And she did these things. I said, well, I teach at home. Tell me what to do, and I'll do it, and then we can talk on the phone, because this $240 an hour is killing me, So she did, just real good. We went back and forth. I labeled everything. We had the word of the day. I drilled it, I spanked, I tried everything that I had done with my other kids. It wasn't coming. And finally, in April, I said, you've got to help me. I was going to Health South, and I said, you've got to help me. This is not working. She said, Miss Harbin, I have sent several notices to your pediatrician, and I just had some other concerns, but I didn't know at the time she felt like she couldn't legally tell me what she suspected. So I said, you sent some notices to my pediatrician, so I got down there, and I got a copy of the chart, and I read them, and I was going, oh my goodness, who didn't tell me something here? And I said, I need an evaluation done right away, and I got one. But they said, well, we need to send you to the Marcus Institute. And the Marcus Institute had just gotten a federal grant for Chad, and basically they were filled up until the day before Thanksgiving. For 6 months, I had to wait. And I read, and I looked on the internet, and I didn't want to believe it. And I was in denial, and my husband would bring me home books saying, oh, late talking children who became geniuses, and read this, and go, oh good, yeah, that's him. Well, he does this, he does that. This is it. I got to believe it, because I didn't want to look at what this was saying. That's not my child. He doesn't do this. He doesn't do those things. This can't be him. But by the time we got our diagnosis, obviously we knew this is what it is. And from then on, we hit the road and we've run. Basically, trying to get him into an ABA program, because that was what the research and the study said. You know, get your child into an ABA program. This is what you need to do. This is, you know, what the study shows is most effective. Also, we tried to find a DAN doctor, which is Defeat Autism Now, and the DAN doctors will kind of see if there's any kind of medical underlying conditions that are going on. Well, as you know, you've heard in the news, autism is on the rise. Why? Nobody really understands. We know there's a genetic component, but that doesn't answer all the questions. You know, I think that there are other things. Everybody has an opinion about it. That doesn't matter.